Okay, so thank you for bearing with me on this one. This long, complicated, rambling tale. So how can we tie all this up, really? So to summarise, okay, so a bard is a poet in the Celtic tradition, but there's not one single tradition. It's better to say Celtic traditions because for example, the established Celtic tradition, like the Welsh Eisteddfod, would have very strict rules about poetry. Poetry would have to be performed in a certain metre and would have to be performed in Welsh and would have to be performed from memory. So the Bardic Chairs, which interestingly are mainly in England, there are a few in Wales. I'm not sure if there are some in Scotland. So check out Philip Shawcross's document for a list of them. But the ancient Bardic Chairs included mainly places where there was some kind of natural mound or an ancient mound. So for example, the mound upon which the old keep of Windsor Castle now stands was one. Exeter, which is the Bardic Chair that I was most involved with, there's a castle built on a place called Rougemont, which is Red Mound, so that was the place located with that. Glastonbury Tor, as you can imagine, would be one. It'd be crazy not to have Glastonbury Tor as one. Primrose Hill in London. So Primrose Hill really was the first one. If you go up on Primrose Hill today, there's loads of stuff about Iolo Morgannwg and the Eisteddfod, and there's monuments to it, there's inscriptions there, and also it was a place very significant for William Blake. William Blake had a vision of an angel up there, so it has a kind of double kind of Druidic Bardic association. So a number of places, some of which have revived their Bardic Chair and some of which haven't. Avebury is another one. And other places where people have created a new Bardic Chair, and I believe there are there was, I think, one in New Zealand, I think one in Australia, and certainly there's so basically the Celts in later years, for example, the Welsh moved around, because they were skilled miners. They went to the New World, they went to lots of different places to share their mining skills and to prospect, so they brought some of those traditions with them. So there are now Bardic Chairs all over the world, and Kevan Manwaring is probably the best person to get an update on where those are and how those are doing. I can talk about Exeter, because Exeter was the one that I established, or I should say re-established, but we don't know that for sure. So how do you establish or re-establish a Bardic Chair? Well, you're supposed to march boldly into the location, which was where the castle is in Exeter for me, announce yourself as Bard in front of at least 2 witnesses and invite people to contest you for it after a year and a day, which is what I did. I actually got the newspaper to come with me, and I did it in front of a journalist, which is kind of effectively more than 2 witnesses, so that's how I did it. And it took ages to get it off the ground, but then finally I managed to kind of find the right people in the poetry community in Exeter, which is a thriving one, and kind of get them on board, and now the whole thing's just been doing brilliantly well. Okay, so I was the first Bard. Then after a year and a day, handed over to somebody else, and it was slightly more complicated than that, but simple version. After a year and a day, handed it over to somebody else, and then I became the Grand Bard, which in Bath is called the Druid Chair. I decided to call it the Grand Bard because being in Devon, I feel a close affiliation towards Gorsedd Kerno, the Cornish bards, and they have a Grand Bard, so it was a nod towards them. But I would answer to the title of Druid Chair. One would not take any offence to that, but Grand Bard was the one that we chose. That's supposed to hold for 7 years. So that's now handed over to somebody called Jackie Juno, who is now the second Grand Bard and doing a very fine job of it. And God knows how many bards we've got through now. It's in double figures, and they've been really good people. We get some really good quality applicants. So we've got a Bardic Chair, we've got a Bardic Robe. So this is the question that people get hung up on. Is it is it a religious thing? Is it just for people? Is it a pagan thing? And I like to say, because I can only really speak for Exeter, because that's kind of my baby. And now I'm kind of retired. I'm kind of, if you like, Grand Bard Emeritus. I've got the title of patron now, which is like kind of an impotent kind of grandfatherly figure. So I would say it's, the way I like to look at it is that it's completely inclusive and open to all, and that anyone who wishes to get involved, they are not expected to embrace any new or different religious or spiritual beliefs, but at the same time we honour where it comes from. So we honour the, and there is a degree of a pagan flavour to it, but anything Druidic is never entirely pagan. I would say. Loads of people would argue with me on that. But historically, and certainly the Bardic tradition, as expressed by the Gorseddi, Gorseddi is the plural of Gorsedd, is more cultural than it is religious, and historically, because it's of recent origin, has a more of a Christian kind of seasoning to it than it has a pagan one. And I like to think, and the thing about Druidry is, it's an interesting thing, is it's, you know, many people say, and I agree with this, that it's not a religion, it's a spiritual path. So you can have a religion and also be a druid. So, for example, there's I think there's at least 2 Christian druid orders. So I never always feel like I give a very kind of waffly answer to this question, but I would say that the Bardic Chair of Exeter is secular, but has a spiritual heart and comes from a traditional place and honours those traditions. But it's not a religious organisation, if that kind of makes sense. So if you were really very uncomfortable with the whole concept of Druidry, then you probably wouldn't want to be involved. Okay, but if you've got a reasonably open mind and you happen to be Muslim or Hindu or Christian of any denomination, you know, I like to think that you would feel comfortable and you would certainly be welcome. So that's kind of how it works, really. What else shall I tell you I've got a few minutes left before we have to wrap up. This is the thing, there are so many things that I could tell you, and there are so many things. Every time I met with Tim Sebastian, he'd kind of leave me with another little nugget of Druidic lore, you know, and I am keen to sort of pass this on, and so this doesn't get lost. There is a name for a lot of the Bardic chairs have been given Celticized is the word I would use, names. So they're not the original Celtic names, but they're kind of like romantic, kind of Georgian or Victorian kind of interpretations of what a Celtic name would be. And they all begin with Caer, C-A-E-R. And C-A-E-R means, what's the word I'm looking for? Settlement, basically. So Cardiff is, you know, comes from Caer. It's got the word Caer in it. The car in Cardiff is, and when Welsh people pronounce it, they say Cardiff, you know, so they're actually saying Cardiff. So the Exeter Bardic Chair is called Caer Wisga, or Caer Wisga. Wisga has similar origins. The word whiskey comes from the same root, whiskey being the water of life. And it's a nod towards the name of Exeter. The Roman name for Exeter was Isca. And also there's an Isca in Wales as well, interestingly. So it's got a name. It's also got a motto. Again, from, I think it was the Bardic Sourcebook. There's an obscure piece of writing in there that gives a Druidic motto, a Druidic Bardic motto for Devon and Cornwall, which at one time were one Celtic kingdom, which effectively is nothing is forever, which is not forever and ever. So if you look at the document that's part of my website, which gives a patchy history of not Apache as in Apache Native Americans, a patchy history of the Bardic Chair. It gives that motto, and it gives it translated into Cornish as well, because the Gorsedd Kerno kindly translated it into Cornish for me. So sort of officially we use the Cornish, because Devon and Cornwall until right into the Dark Ages were one kingdom. They were the kingdom of Dumnonia. So I have said a lot, and I feel I have said very little. I hope this has whetted your appetite, and I hope I've given you enough resources to find out more about Bardic Chairs. And because I haven't been directly involved in the movement for a little while, there's lots of things that I don't know and lots of things that I'm not up to speed on. So if anybody wants to message me with anything that I've missed, or any other points, or any other information, or particularly if anyone can find and place those various missing pieces of the Bardic jigsaw puzzle, that would be fantastic as well. Because the trouble is, a lot of this information would have died with Tim, really, but certain people, particularly people like Kevan and Manwaring, have done massive amounts of work to try and kind of keep this stuff alive. Hats off to them for that. So do ask me questions, do put stuff in the comments box, do look at those links, do read the books, I hope you can all kind of do your part to keep this very strange, disjointed, chaotic, mysterious, fragmented tradition alive. I often think Celtic people were always fighting one another. So I think that often is reflected in in things like Druidry and the Bardic tradition and stuff like that not necessarily people fighting one another, but things fragmenting and people taking the tradition off in different directions, and things just getting very kind of messed up, really. So hopefully I have demystified and not remystified. But I'd love to hear from anyone who's got any comments or questions or thoughts. I may not be able to answer the questions, but I might be able to point you in the right direction. So, let's finish with an Arwen, shall we? That'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? So I've got a bit of a bad throat here, but let's see if we can do an Arwen.